When the rescue posted his photo, the comments came fast and harsh. Too dangerous. Not for families. Those dogs turn on you. In the picture, the cane Corso's amber eyes stared straight into the camera, ribs showing under a dull black coat, a bright red stamp over his profile. Behavioral case. Experienced owners only. Most people scrolled right past him. But not Julia. Julia paused, thumb hovering over the screen. Something in that dog's eyes looked less like aggression and more like fear. Not a challenge, not a threat. Just a tired, confused animal who didn't understand why his world had shrunk to 4 concrete walls and chain link. "Mom, look." 8-year-old Noah appeared at her elbow, craning to see her phone. "Another dog." Julia laughed softly. "Just looking, bud." "Is he mean?" Noah asked, squinting at the picture. Julia hesitated. The description wasn't reassuring. Strong breed labeled dangerous due to size and guarding instincts. Needs structure. Not recommended for homes with kids. But life rarely matched the labels people slapped on it. Julia knew that better than anyone. 2 weeks later, despite every warning and every doubtful look from friends, the dog in the photo stepped cautiously into their small living room. He had a new name now. Diesel. Thick muscles under his still thin frame, cropped ears, massive head lowered as he sniffed furniture, walls, shoes. His tail was docked, his past unknown. His future hanging on this moment with one family brave, or foolish enough to say yes. The rescue had been clear. "He's been through a lot," the volunteer said at the door. Noise sensitive. Startled easily. But in the right hands he could be incredible. Just supervise closely around kids. Julia looked at Diesel, then at Noah, who was practically vibrating with excitement but holding himself back like she'd asked. "Remember slow," she whispered. "Let him come to you." Noah nodded, dropping to the carpet and turning sideways, eyes averted like they'd practiced. For a long breathless moment, nothing happened. Diesel simply stood there, chest rising and falling, nostrils flaring as he took in the new house. Then quietly the dangerous cane Corso walked straight past Julia and her husband and went to the kid on the floor. He lowered that massive head and gently, almost shyly, pressed his nose into Noah's shoulder. The boy erupted into a grin, fingers sinking into the thick fur of Diesel's neck. The dog didn't flinch. He exhaled a long, heavy sigh, and then did something that made the rescue volunteers' brows shoot up. He lay down. Not near Noah. Not across the room. Directly beside him. Their bodies touching from shoulder to hip. From that first day, Diesel chose his person, and it wasn't the adults who could feed him, train him or drive him to the vet. It was the small human who still slept with a nightlight and left his Lego armies spread across the floor. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. Diesel startled at loud noises and barked at delivery trucks with a voice that seemed to shake the windows. Strangers crossing the street would change sides when they saw him. At the park, other parents pulled their children closer, eyes narrowing in wary judgment. But at home, Diesel became something entirely different. He followed Noah from room to room like a shadow with paws, head brushing the boy's hand, checking, always checking. If Noah laughed, Diesel's tail thumped. If Noah cried, Diesel appeared at his side as if summoned by a button no one else could see. The first time they noticed the sleep thing was an accident. It was a Saturday. Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, cartoons still murmuring from the TV. Julia tried to coax Diesel to his new oversized dog bed near the window, patting the cushion. "Come on, big guy. This is yours." Diesel walked over, sniffed it politely. Then turned around and went right back to the couch, carefully climbing up so his body formed a barrier along Noah's spine. He rested his head on the armrest, eyes half closed but alert, every breath synced to the rise and fall of the boy's chest. That pattern never changed. If Noah went to his bedroom, Diesel did too. When they tried to close the door at night, Diesel would plant himself in the hallway, head down on his paws, nose pressed to the crack, whining softly until they opened it. "He won't sleep unless he can touch him," Julia realized after yet another night of trying. They bought a bigger mattress. Noah slept on one side, Diesel on the other, paws barely touching the child's leg like he was checking for a pulse. If they gently led Diesel out after Noah drifted off, he would wait a few minutes, and then quietly push the door open again, climbing up like some furry, black-coated guardian angel who hadn't gotten the memo that he was supposed to be terrifying. Maybe he's just protective, Julia's husband shrugged. Guard dog stuff. It became a cute family story at first. The dangerous rescue who'd turned into a clingy, oversized body pillow. Friends would laugh when they heard. But there were moments, small and strange, that didn't fit the just protective explanation. Like the times Diesel would jolt awake before Noah whimpered in his sleep, sitting up, ears twitching, staring at the boy's face intensely, as if listening to a frequency no one else could hear. Or the way he'd occasionally nudge Noah's shoulder, firm but gentle, until the boy shifted positions, then sigh in relief and lie back down. 2 years passed this way. School days, soccer practices, birthday parties. Life settled into routines, all of them quietly orbiting the unspoken rule of the house. Where Noah slept, Diesel slept. No exceptions. Then, one humid summer night, when thunder rolled so far away it was more felt than heard, everything changed. It started with the sound of claws on hardwood, frantic and scraping down the hallway. Then a crash against a bedroom door. A deep, desperate bark that wasn't the warning growl Diesel used for strangers but something higher, panicked, almost pleading. Julia sat up in bed, heart racing. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. The barking came again, frantic, insistent. Diesel's voice. Coming from Noah's room. And for the first time since the day they brought him home, the dangerous cane Corso sounded truly afraid. Julia and her husband were out of bed before their brains fully caught up. The hallway felt longer than it ever had, every bark from Noah's room slicing through the dark like a siren. They burst through the door to find chaos. Diesel was on the bed, something he usually did with careful grace, but tonight there was nothing careful about him. He was standing over Noah's small body, front paws braced on either side of the boy's shoulders, barking directly toward the doorway as if calling them in. His massive head kept jerking back to look at the child, then at them, eyes wide, pupils blown in panic. "Noah!" Julia rushed forward, reaching for her son. That's when she saw it. Noah's arms were rigid. His fingers curled into tight claws around the blanket. His eyes fluttered, unfocused, lips parted but not quite breathing right. His whole body seemed to be caught between shivering and freezing. "Call 911. Julia's voice cracked as cold terror flooded her. Her husband fumbled for his phone, hands shaking. Diesel stopped barking the moment Julia's hands landed on her son. He lowered his head and pressed his nose against Noah's chest, breathing quickly, as if trying to will the boy back into awareness. When Noah's body jerked again, Diesel let out a low, broken whine, something so raw and human it made Julia's throat tighten. Minutes blurred into flashing lights and shouted instructions. Paramedics. Oxygen. Questions. Has this ever happened before? No. Any history of seizures? No, never. All the while, Diesel paced from the bed to the doorway and back, panting, tail down, eyes locked on the stretcher as they carried his little human out. When they closed the ambulance door, he lunged forward, letting out a deep, desperate bark that made one of the paramedics flinch. "It's okay, big guy," another murmured with surprising kindness. "We've got him. We'll take care of him." They drove away with Noah. Diesel sat in the driveway, motionless, watching the red lights disappear. He stayed there even after the night swallowed the road again, like he couldn't quite believe they'd taken his child and not him. At the hospital, tests and scans and terrifying words swirled around the family. Epilepsy. Nocturnal seizures. Probably happening for a while. The doctor spoke gently, but everything landed like a punch. "He's been having episodes in his sleep," she explained, pointing to the results. "We think tonight's was just the worst so far. Your son is lucky someone caught it when they did." Seizures like that can go unnoticed for years. Julia felt lightheaded. But someone did notice. Diesel did. The doctor's brow furrowed. Diesel. Our dog, Noah whispered from the hospital bed, still pale, hair plastered to his forehead. He clutched the stuffed version of Diesel they'd bought years ago, the only thing that had calmed him enough to let the nurses work. He woke them up. He always sleeps next to me. He doesn't let anyone move me. The neurologist paused, then nodded slowly. It's more common than you'd think. Some dogs can sense changes before humans can. Heart rate, breathing, electrical activity. It's possible he's been reacting to small seizures for a long time without you realizing what was happening. Suddenly, so many strange moments snapped into place like puzzle pieces. The way Diesel would jolt out of a dead sleep. The late-night nudges. The times he refused to leave Noah's bed even for treats, planting himself there like a living shield. Years of it. He hadn't been clingy. He hadn't been obsessed. He had been working, watching, guarding. He had been awake when everyone else was asleep. That night in the hospital, when visiting hours ended, Diesel was back at home, lying in the middle of Noah's empty bed. Julia's sister sent a photo. The big black dog was curled into the shape of absence, nose pressed into Noah's pillow like he could breathe the boy back into the room. Can we bring him here tomorrow? Noah asked weakly. We'll ask, Julia said, squeezing his hand. I think we all owe him a thank you. The hospital had a small enclosed garden for therapy animals. The next afternoon, with special permission, Diesel finally saw his little human again. He walked into the garden on a leash, muscles tense, eyes scanning every corner until he spotted the wheelchair. There, wrapped in a blanket and an oversized hospital bracelet, was Noah. Diesel! The boy called, voice cracking with joy. The cane Corso didn't pull or lunge. He simply walked, then trotted, then almost ran the last few steps, stopping so suddenly his claws scraped on the concrete. He pressed his head into Noah's chest gently, exhaling in a long shaking sigh that sounded too much like relief. He sniffed the boy all over, nose hovering near the small sensor they'd attached to monitor his heart and brain activity. His posture eased. His tail swished. And then, right there in the hospital garden, Diesel lay down beside the wheelchair, curling his body close enough that Noah could rest his hand on his back. He's checking the equipment, one nurse joked softly. Making sure we're doing our job. Word spread quietly among the staff. The dangerous breed who had sounded the alarm before anyone else. Nurses stopped to scratch his ears. Doctors nodded at him in passing with unexpected respect. When they discharged Noah with new medication and a care plan, everyone knew the real reason he was walking out instead of becoming a tragic story that started with, he just never woke up. Back at home, nothing could convince Diesel to resume any other sleeping arrangement. Even with monitors and medication, he still insisted on his post, pressed against Noah's bed every single night, as if he'd personally signed a contract with the universe. Years later, when Noah was a teenager and the story had become a favorite family legend, he did a project for school about service animals. At the end of his presentation, he showed a photo. A much older Diesel, muzzle now flecked with white, eyes still bright, curled up beside a lanky kid on a bed full of textbooks and headphones. This is my dog, Noah told his classmates. They said he was dangerous. But he's the reason I'm standing here. He knew something was wrong before anyone else did. He never left my side, not because he was needy, but because he was doing a job none of us could see. At home that night, Noah dropped his backpack and went to his room. Diesel, moving slower these days, followed as he always had. The teenager flopped onto the bed, and without a word, the old cane Corso climbed up, easing himself into the familiar position by his side. Hey, big guy, Noah whispered, arm draped over his neck. I know why you do it now. Diesel's eyes closed. His chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, still unconsciously matching the heartbeat of the human he'd chosen years ago. Everyone else had needed scans, tests, and hospital machines to understand what was wrong. He had needed only one thing: to sleep beside his little human, every single night, until someone finally asked why.